What's up, everybody? JJ Buckets here, yours truly, and it is time to talk basketball. Now, before I get into today's video, I just want to thank everybody for the overwhelming support on the last video that I had. It was tremendous. Obviously, the views were high, gained a lot of subscribers. So, thank you. Truly, again. And I'm really glad you folks liked it because even before I dropped that video, I was meaning to kind of shift the focus of this channel to kind of the NBA draft and look at some of the prospects. So I'm really happy that's content that you want to see because I sure as hell will be making a lot more of it, as evidenced by today's video. So I wanted to start this mini series kind of where I just look at some of the top prospects in this draft where hopefully the Raptors will be because god damn it, and I can't stress this enough, I actually, I feel bittersweet every time I see the Raptors take a W at this point because I'm just like, man, but I want those lottery odds. But nonetheless, I'm just gonna go through some of the top guys in this draft, like a Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Suggs, etc. Kind of probably pretty much like 1 through 10, maybe like a few guys outside of it, maybe a few guys missing from it. Yeah, from the top 10 that I just genuinely don't think are going to be good fits with the Raptors. But nonetheless, today that series is going to start, and we are starting off with the projected #1 pick in this year's draft, Cade Cunningham. So without further ado, let's hop into the video. So the way I'm going to do these videos is I'm going to break it down to 5 kind of subtopics where I talk about the strengths of a player, the weaknesses, the fit for the Raptors specifically, the case for drafting this player should they be in a position to take him, and the case against drafting this player. So, simple and straightforward, I think. We're gonna kick things off with the strengths, and boy oh boy, is there a lot to talk about here with Cade Cunningham. So I went into like this whole deep dive and just like rabbit hole of just watching Cade highlights and watching like Cade just games from his college season at OSU last year, or I guess this year. Well, last year because it's over for me. Anyways, what I liked about Cade Cunningham, what I think that really stood out. I've heard a lot of like Luka comparisons for him, and I can kind of see, or like quote unquote Luka light is what I've heard, and I can kind of see where people are coming from. I think Cade might actually be a better finisher around the basket, and that's no knock on Luka by any means. I think Cade is just fantastic around the basket. I think he finishes really well around there, and I think he takes contact really well too, which I think is a really good sign for a young player. On top of which, I also think Cade will have no issues whatsoever drawing fouls at the NBA level, and I do genuinely think that is a skill, especially in today's game. I think Cade is maybe a little bit worse than Luka, you know, if we're doing like the direct comparison when it comes to creating space for himself off the dribble. And that's not to say that, you know, he's not good off the dribble or off the bounce, like he's fantastic. I just think Luka is better in that regard for sure. But the thing I will say about Cade is seemingly he has no problems knocking that shot down over defenders, which is a good sign. My only kind of small point of like concern there would be when you're doing it against NBA level players, does that still remain the same? Which hopefully it would naturally, but nonetheless, he's comfortable with a guy in his face. So even if he doesn't create as much space as somebody like a Luka, he can still knock down that shot, which is a great sign. I think he's good at creating his own shot off the bounce. I think he has a good mid-range pull-up, and he can shoot the ball from 3 as well. So I think he'll have no issue stretching the court in the NBA. He's like, I'm sorry, I've just been talking about it, and I'm just constantly thinking here in the back of my head, man, I loved watching that, the Cade Cunningham. Furthermore, to go into his strengths, his passing ability is fantastic. I think his assist numbers are going to look even better when he's playing in the NBA with pros that are better at finishing some of the plays that he tried to set up. I think he's tremendously gifted. He's threaded some very tough passes at OSU, like from what I watched. I also think he has the opportunity to be a very switchable defender in the NBA, which I think is always a positive. He showed even like some flashes of, you know, being a good help defender in terms of just like weak side blocks. I think he has good defensive IQ, and I think that'll translate very well to the NBA. I think he'll, like I said, I think he'll be a positive on the defensive end right away, which is always great for your young guys. And yeah, like he's a great leader as well. From what I saw, he was never afraid of like the big moment to step into it and to take the shots that he needed to, knowing that he's the best player on the team, which, you know, that's something that like you either have it or you don't. I don't think that's necessarily something you can teach. I think it's just a personality trait. So with all that being said, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of strengths to Cade's game. I think it is clear as day why he is, you know, the top prospect in this draft and why he is more or less the consensus #1 pick. What a player. Next, we're gonna go into the weaknesses, and when it comes to this category, like it's just really nitpicking. I mean, he's the #1 prospect in the draft. He's the projected #1 overall pick. So like straight up, there's not a lot of weaknesses to talk about. I guess just from what I saw, he's a good athlete, but he's not like a super athlete by any means, if you want to use that as a knock on his game. I think he can maybe struggle a little bit with like shiftier point guards if that's his matchup. I think you'd rather, you know, have him go up against somebody else from the 2 or the 3 as opposed to like playing that and guarding that like shifty guard. He can try to force passes a little bit too much at times, which is something that I think he can clean up a little bit. But besides for that, any knock on Cade really is just, it's very nitpicky. Next, I want to talk about the fit here with Cade Cunningham. And first of all, I think he's probably going to be slotting into the 2 with Freddie playing the 1 on this team, which I think is perfectly fine. I think that's a very natural fit for him into this lineup. Now, when it comes to Cade Cunningham and what he brings to the Raptors in terms of fit, I think it's really easy to identify. I think he really fills that need of a closer at the end of games. I think that's something that has quietly been talked about amongst Raptors fans, is, you know, needing a star player that's just going to go get his own buckets at the end of games when it's a tight one and you just need somebody to create your own create their own shot for your offense. I think Cade Cunningham perfectly fits that role. I think he slots in very well defensively on this team because, as I talked about earlier, I think he is fairly switchable, so I think he can guard a multitude of positions on the defensive end, which will serve Nick Nurse's system well. And I think for his position, he's also a good rebounder, which does help that need. Obviously, he's not a center, he's not a big, so, you know, like, you have to consider, I guess, playing Pascal at the 5 still, or whether or not that's something you want to do going forward. But if you do decide to keep Pascal at the 5, I think you feel some sort of confidence in the fact that, hey, at least you're adding a very good to possibly elite rebounder at his position. So I think Cade fits in really well for a bunch of reasons here, both offensively, defensively, on the glass, just you name it. I think the fit is fantastic. So the last 2 categories here are going to be the case for and the case against drafting Cade Cunningham should the Raptors be in a position. And I promise it won't be like this for every single prospect I talk about, but for the most part here, these last 2 categories are really a formality, because what's the case for adding Cade Cunningham to the Raptors? He's the best player in the draft. So the case is really easy. As I talked about in my previous video, Cade Cunningham is somebody that fits on any team. I think no matter who you are, you take him if you're #1. He's the best prospect in the draft for a reason, and you adjust your team to a player like him and not vice versa. So I think the case for drafting him is really simple. Best player in the draft, potential game-changing talent, potential transcendent talent, so why wouldn't you take him? The case against, I mean, again, there's not really a huge one here. The only case I could see against drafting Cade Cunningham is your most prevalent need on the Raptors is a big man slash center, and Cade Cunningham is not one of those positions. But other than that, there's not a case. Other than that, there's not a case against drafting Cade Cunningham. Yeah. Yeah. So that does it for me today. What do you folks think? Is Cade Cunningham your favorite prospect in this NBA draft that's coming up? If he is, why? And what kind of impact do you think he can have on the Raptors? Truly, I want to know. Comment below, leave me your thoughts. Even if I don't get to all of the comments in terms of replying, I guarantee you I'm reading all of them, and I enjoy just seeing all the contrasting opinions. I enjoy seeing people agree with me. I enjoy seeing people disagree with me. I think it's really fun to just see the contrast in Raptors Nation right now. So leave them below. Like I said, I love reading them. Other than that, folks, you know the usual drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way to helping the channel grow, and you folks did a fantastic job with it last time, and I will once again say thank you. I don't expect the same kind of results this time around, but hey, whatever you folks can do, I will truly appreciate it. Other than that, that does it for me today here, and I am out of here.